Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a pretty fun Friday night slate here, Nate. In this one, we are going to be taking a look at the Bucks visiting the New Orleans Pelicans, who just won off of that Devontae Graham 61-foot game winner from on the buzzer there to beat the Thunder. And we know there are going to be a few players out for Milwaukee tonight, so make sure you are checking out who is going to be in the lineups tonight. Lines.com has all that info for you, staying up to date. Make sure you check out Nate's great article up on playpicks.com as well with those best bets and player props, and like and subscribe to that page, as we've got a couple other videos for you today, including that player props video where we will give you a gift card opportunity to win in the comments there. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Bucks open at -3, and they're now -2 here on the road. Seems like an exploitable spread for the defending champs, but we will circle back to that. Like you said, a lot of intriguing games tonight. Really could come up with a betting angle for any of them. You got Heat -6 at Magic, Nuggets +4 at the Hawks. The Warriors are -3.5 at the Celtics. Celtics won 5 in a row against the Dubs there. Jazz -11.5 at home against the Spurs. The Lakers, trying to get some momentum, are +2 at the Wolves. Grizzlies -6 at the short-handed Kings. And then the other video we're going to break down, Hornets +2.5 at the Blazers. We don't know if LaMelo Ball will be back tonight, but there's a chance. And that totals all the way up at 231 right now, the way the Hornets have been playing shootouts. But I'm looking at a simple bet. It's not the sexiest game on the slate by any means, but just the Bucks to cover this very small spread against the Pelicans team that is playing a little bit better, but is still decidedly below average, especially on defense, especially where they give up the production on defense. They're 26th in defensive rating during a 4 and 5 stretch here. Their only wins in that span, I mean, it took that half-court heave to beat the Thunder. They beat the Pistons. They beat the wildly inconsistent Clippers and Mavericks. They have not strung together any momentum. You know, they're coming off that win against OKC. They're 1-7 straight up following a win this year, 4-9 at home straight up, and they have the worst record among Western Conference teams against the East. They're 2-8 against the East this year. The Bucks will be without Giannis. I mean, probably should have led with that. Giannis is out in COVID protocols, as well as Bobby Portis, Wesley Matthews, and a few other guys. But they should get Chris Middleton back tonight. He's probable to return from knee soreness. And without both those guys, they still handled Indiana by 15 points, thanks to 26 and 12 from Drew Holiday. Drew, facing his former team, one time in January, went for 22, 9 and 5. Expect another solid game from him here. And look, we know the Bucks are pretty much the same team without Giannis over a large sample size in the regular season against, you know, below average opponents. They're still getting about 115 points per game, still shooting 40% from deep. And if those shots aren't falling, you're looking at a Pelicans team that's 27th in 2-point defense and allows the 4th most paint points at home. So there's just a lot of consistency to be found here for the Bucks. And we know what the Bucks are. Yeah, without Giannis, sometimes you want to exploit those spreads, but we also know what the Pelicans are without Zion, which has just been a terrible offensive team really all year. So there's not much to trust about their scoring, especially the fact that they score a very low percentage of points off threes. In fact, they're 25th at home. And that's what the Bucks give up, right? They give up the second highest percentage of points off threes on the road. So if you're facing a team that can't beat you from deep, then you can really pack it in and force them into some bad shots otherwise. And I think that's going to be how Milwaukee wins tonight.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, I'm looking at offense in this game, to be honest. You look at a lack of defense on the Pelly side, as you mentioned. Honestly, Milwaukee's also taken a few steps back in terms of their defense, and they are much worse on the road. They give up 109 points per game on the road versus 104 when they are at home, does Milwaukee. So, their defense has taken a little bit of a decline as well. As I said, it's gone down in the last 9 games. Is something that we're kind of looking at. The Pellies, as you mentioned, they've put together a few nice games in their last 9 against some bad teams, but Milwaukee's defensive rating has also actually risen in that same span of those last 9 games. It's been at 109 as opposed to the 106 that it is on the season, about 104 before this last 9-game streak of not really playing much D for them. 6 of those last 9 have gone over for Milwaukee. You look at what happens when Giannis doesn't play. Obviously, you're worse on both sides of the floor when you have a top 3 player in the NBA not playing for you. But specifically on defense, it seems to be where they get hurt, because on offense in the last couple seasons, when Giannis doesn't play, there's been 15 games to give us that decent sample size that their offensive rating or their offensive rating stays pretty high. They still score 114 a game dating back to last season when Giannis is sitting. So their offense can still find ways to score, which we already know is the case with them, as they have plenty of depth and role players, especially this season. And New Orleans has been showing a propensity to score more at home as well. Whereas they score 107 at home, give up 110. Whereas on the road they only score 101. So their offense jumps up, their defense stays terrible wherever they are. And both of these teams can't defend the 3. Especially in the last 9, as we're looking at that sample size, both of them are in the bottom 10 or I think 23rd and 27th respectively for the Pellies and Bucks in terms of opponent 3-point percentage. They're just letting the opponents get open, hit almost a 38% clip of their threes for both teams, which is really, really high. So I think it's pace, it's scoring. It's definitely the Bucks getting over their team total, which I really like. That spread, the total there has actually dropped, as we mentioned, from 220 to 218 now. So at 218, it's pretty good. I mean, that's still, we've got the Bucks at about 109.5. Have their team total there. So, I really, really like that against a Pelicans team that can't score. If you like the over, great. I would definitely take the over as it's dropped to 218. I don't think that's correct, to be honest. I don't know if people think Giannis is out but New Orleans has shown that they can't, in the last 9, they've been 12th in offensive rating. That's jumped up tremendously as well. So, Brandon Ingram getting back into the lineup in those last 9-10 games and playing all of them has been huge for their offense and opened up things. They've given up a lot, given a lot more time to the guys that they know can score, like Josh Hart, as opposed to trying to get Neil Walker-Alexander in there, or really it's about Kyra Lewis not really being able to stay in the offense for the Pellies as well, and letting Devontae Graham just stay in the lineup as well. That all these things have led to much better offense, much worse defense. Guys like Devontae Graham are not defensive stoppers; they're all scorers. And so I think it's a game that lends itself to offense, and it lends itself to the Bucks being able to win, because stars out, bets up. I'm not worried about, you look at these lineups right without Giannis in it, and it's still Bucks pretty much winning every single battle, outside of probably Steven Adams and maybe, if you like Brandon Ingram more than Chris Middleton, who I don't, I like Chris Middleton more, you still got a ton of advantage on Milwaukee's side tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on with the numbers indicating over. In fact, the over has risen from 214 to 218.5 because sharps are hitting that so frequently. As it approaches 220, I'm kind of off that, because I do worry about New Orleans being able to score. The one thing I think they can lean on is Jonas Valanciunas, right? Not Steven Adams. They did that swap out.
Right, my bad.
Who has had always 3 straight good games against the Bucks, and with Brook Lopez out with back surgery, with Bobby Portis out tonight, I don't know how they're necessarily going to handle him. So I think that could help us get points on both sides of the ball. But I'm not messing with the total at the moment because of Giannis being out. But I am looking for other ways to juice the Bucks winning. Drew Holiday, his point prop is just 18.5, but you want to take him to get 20 points in a win. That's good odds at FanDuel. You can take Drew to get just 6 rebounds in a win, which seems like a really safe bet, given the amount of minutes he's going to be playing and how poorly New Orleans tends to shoot at times. That's plus 280. There's some intriguing options here for Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton to hit some threes against this poor Pelicans defense and get you some odds there. So I'd be looking at that for other angles, but really I'd just keep it simple. Just say the Bucks, this is way too small of a spread for the defending champs, which is still a really quality team without Giannis. And they took their lumps recently against Miami and Boston, but it's just a completely different situation when they play other teams that don't have that kind of defensive fortitude, that don't come in with the same kind of intensity to play the Bucks. They usually just handle business against these below 500 teams.
Yeah, and that's been the case since they got their 3 stars back who were hurt in the beginning of the season. And we started to see them actually struggle, at least against the spread and straight up against a few bad teams, which is the opposite of their calling card since, Budenholzer has taken over and they've just really mopped up on those really bad Eastern Conference teams, especially. In this one, too, I think you're right on. I think you just attacked Drew Holiday's props all over the place. I actually like his assists. If you look at what he's done in the last 2 seasons when Giannis doesn't play, pretty decent sample size there in 12 games. He's averaging more than 20 points and more than 8 assists at about 5 rebounds a game. So his assists do stay hot, do stay very high. He had 14 in that last game against the Pacers, where we know Chris Middleton and Giannis both sat. So he's still able to get his assists because he's got plenty of shooters around him. The offense changes a little bit from without Giannis at that high post. Now you've got a lot more wing play and a lot more spread out action for Drew Holiday to do his thing and get those assists. So I would consider either 20 points and W for them, getting plus 285 on your money. I love that. And then Drew Holiday 8+ assists is where I would go before the rebounds, to be honest. For myself personally, just seeing what he does without Giannis, he still gets a ton of assists there. 8 in a win gets you plus 240. But with all that juice at plus 285 on 20 points for Drew in a win, I think that's huge tonight. And I'm going to definitely hit that as soon as we're done with this episode. So that is all the time that we have for today. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can check out that player props video and that gift card opportunity we have for you. And until we see you next, happy betting.